When a gunman killed 17 people at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida 6 months ago, students across the country rallied for change.
Stand for us or beware, the voters are coming.
Thousands marched in protest of gun violence, demanding leaders in Washington act on comprehensive gun control. And then the day after, students in Wisconsin decided to keep on marching, walking for 4 days and 50 miles from the state capital of Madison to Janesville, the hometown of House Speaker Paul Ryan.
50 miles more, hear us roar! 50 miles more, hear us roar!
The organizers said they were inspired by the 54-mile civil rights march from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama. Now their group, 50 Miles More, is aiming to hold protests in all 50 states, starting right here in Massachusetts, with a march starting Thursday morning in Worcester and ending 50 miles away in Springfield at the headquarters of gun manufacturer Smith & Wesson. I'm joined now by two of the organizers, Vikiana Petit-Homme, a rising senior at Boston Latin Academy and the director of March for Our Lives Boston, and Jack Torres, a rising junior at Somerville High. Thank you both for being here. So let me start by asking how you each came to be part of this burgeoning movement. How did you get involved with this?
Well, we just came from the march, March 24th. It was finished, and we're brainstorming what to do next. And his mom is from Wisconsin, I believe, and she told him, I think, about the 50-mile march that happened over there. So he came to me. He was like, I think March for Our Lives should really get in this. So we did. You
guys made that jump. Did you guys know each other before?
Yeah.
Yeah. We worked together on March for Our Lives Boston. At Somerville High School, we did a series of walkouts, and then we started working with March for Our Lives Boston to plan the march. And then, we started talking to the students in Wisconsin, and here we are.
Yeah.
All right, so let me ask you about the march that is coming up. What is the timetable? I know you guys are starting the march on Thursday. You're assembling beforehand tomorrow, right, to work out some logistics. Okay, so what happens tomorrow, and then what happens in the 3 days that you travel from Worcester to Springfield?
Yeah, so tomorrow is basically like the first day of camp. So all the marchers are gathering in Worcester, and they're getting to know each other. They're getting all their stuff sorted out, and they're getting ready to march. And the next 3 days, we're marching the 50 miles, and when we get to our lodging locations, there's some activities, some non-violence training, some survivor stories, just different things.
How many people are going to be there at the beginning of the march? Is it going to be a huge event, a moderate-sized event?
In terms of student marchers, there's around 45, and then there's lots of volunteers. The students have to march the whole way when they registered, whereas volunteers can do 1 or 2 days in the middle. And so there's lots of volunteers that will be trading out with each other. And then at the rally, we're hoping for a big turnout from across the state.
How did you guys come to be the first 50 Miles More march after Wisconsin to do this? Why Massachusetts?
Well, I think we were really inspired by them, and we literally just direct messaged them on Instagram and said, how did you guys do this? And we want to be a part of it. And that was right after they launched their 50 More in 50 States campaign. And so since then, we've just been working on it and figuring out what we should do. Should we walk to a legislator's hometown like they did in Wisconsin, or should we walk to a manufacturer? And Smith & Wesson seemed like the perfect location.
How did you make the call? I mean, maybe I'm asking you to answer an obvious question, but why did you go with Smith & Wesson? Obviously, they're a huge gun manufacturer here in the U.S. A lot of people, I think, forget that they're in Massachusetts, in part because we forget about the western part of the state. But why did you pick them as your ending point?
I think that had to do with the fact that we thought it was really hypocritical of Massachusetts to talk about we have really great strong laws, but then have a company like Smith & Wesson in its backyard, and we're allowing them to distribute these weapons out of state, and we don't even want those weapons in our own state. So how is that fair? So we just thought it was time to demand action from them and demand that they be held accountable for their actions.
How optimistic are you that you're going to get anything approaching meaningful engagement from Smith & Wesson? Because your two demands, it's worth highlighting here. You want them to cease the manufacture and distribution of all weapons outlawed under the 2004 Massachusetts assault weapons ban, including A.G. Moore Healey's copycat weapons enforcement. This was the creation of weapons that basically resembled other weapons that were outlawed, sort of like generic versions of guns, right? That's the way I understand it. And you want Smith & Wesson to donate $5 million to research violence caused by the use of their guns and to monitor illegal use of their guns going forward. Is there any reason to think that they're going to be game for any of this?
Definitely. I think especially with that second demand, I think that Smith & Wesson can see an opportunity for them to be a leader in gun violence research. I think it's an important time in history to get gun manufacturers on the side of violence prevention, and I think that they can see this as an opportunity to become a leader in the industry in terms of gun violence research.
Now, I don't mean to put you on the spot. This was actually news to me. Someone had to tell me about this today, but I had not known that Smith & Wesson had tried to go down the route of being a leader in terms of preventive manufacturing. Okay, so you know what happened much better than I do. Tell me and tell viewers what they did back in 2000 and why it didn't quite work out the way it was supposed to.
If I'm thinking the same thing you're thinking, they tried to implement smart technology inside their guns, and
so that only the owner could fire it,
so that only the owner could fire it, and the NRA got a little bit mad, and they basically drove them bankrupt, is from my understanding. But I think that tides have changed. I think we're in a new era. It's not the same as it was back then. The political landscape is different. The way that consumers are buying things are different. So
there's a lot more sort of socially engaged purchasing, right?
Yeah, so I just think this is their time to really step out and do what they were thinking of doing back in 2000.
We tried to get a hold of them. I emailed and called their PR person and did not hear back from her by the time the show began. Have you guys heard anything from them? Has there been any sort of comment or response?
I think to get our permit to March, I think there had to be some sort of interaction with them, but in terms of us talking to them, no.
Yeah, we've contacted them, but we have not heard real responses or any questions.
If they don't respond to you, if they just totally ignore this, I'm not trying to anticipate the negative too much here, but if they just don't engage, will this march that you guys are planning have failed if they don't do what you're asking them to?
Most definitely not. I mean, a big part of this march, obviously there's always alternative goals, right? And one of this is continuing political engagement with young people and voter registration. There will be voter registration set up at the ending rally for students who are marching, and also showing the nation and showing Massachusetts that the students haven't given up on meaningful change, even if the media has oftentimes moved on to other issues. And I think that a big part of this is just showing that March for Our Lives wasn't a one-off event. You know, this is a movement, not a moment. And so I think that, you know, even if Smith & Wesson doesn't meet with our demands the way that we ask them to, there's still a lot of victory going into this.
Yeah, definitely that, but I think it goes a lot to say to the company itself, because we're not asking for them to shut down. We're not asking, I think, for anything that's too unreasonable, especially when it comes to our second demand. I think it's a matter of, do they care about the lives? You know, do they care about those people who are dead now, who aren't able to speak here?
And I guess even if they don't respond to you in the next week or the next month, you guys are trying to play the long game, right?
Yeah.
All right. Vikiana Petit-Homme, Jack Torres, thank you both for being here, and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.